the way medicinal cannabis has become available, the fact that it was illicitly available for so long, and there's so much conversation in the general public about it, there's a lot of anecdotes, a lot of my friend's uncle's dog, almost literally, stories. So what is really important is, yes, we can listen to those kinds of things, but we also need to be able to listen to where the reality fits in. So if we're talking about what kind of indications, so what kind of diagnoses that might be relevant for medicinal cannabis usage, the TGA is a really important stepping stone or a starting point for probably your personal research in this on this topic. So they have created some guidance documents. So one, there's an overview one, which is probably a sensible starting point. And then they've also created another 5 indication-specific documents. So this is the chronic non-cancer pain, palliative care, nausea and vomiting, multiple sclerosis, and refractory epilepsy. So these are not the only indications that medicinal cannabis is used for. These are just the 5 that from 2016-17, these are the ones that were mostly best understood in the use of. In general, what we're interested in for prescribing is patients and situations that hasn't previously responded to the standard medications available for that problem, or that the patient doesn't tolerate those medications. There's also, in the case of opioids and things like that, there's the possibility of being able to reduce polypharmacy. And for lots of patients with chronic pain, palliative care, things like this, we're talking about supporting their quality of life. It's probably also now worth talking about the risks and contraindications for CBD and THC. There are side effects, which, if you look at the list, what we would term as a side effect from a medicinal point of view is actually not necessarily a problem when people are trying to take it recreationally. But what we're aiming for here is having a slow enough titration up for the patients such that they can find their therapeutic level before they're seeing their side effects occur. So this is a graph talking about the therapeutic ratio. So this is the usual effective dose. So how much do you need versus then how much is it actually going to kill you? So for things like our heroin, even codeine, methadone, like it's still a sizable component. Like there's not that much difference between what you need to get an appropriate therapeutic dose and then what's actually going to be really not appropriate for you to have. Whereas for cannabis, because there are no CB1 receptors in the respiratory centers of the brainstem, we've actually got no recorded causes, situations of cannabis-related death. So that's not to say that there hasn't been indirect deaths associated with that. People can do silly things on silly stuff. But it's more around this idea of we can't depress our respiratory center with cannabis alone. If we just touch on the opioid crisis for a moment, so it's no surprise to you, this is something that's very big, not just in the US, where some of these numbers are coming from, but even within Australia. We're talking about, so I think these numbers were coming from 2014, but the idea of about 20,000 doses of opioid per million people each day in Australia. So it's not nothing, and it's certainly something that we can be looking for lots of ways to reduce it.